Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors, and we are in the middle of our Managing Your Healthcare Your Way. And one of the things that is so important is not just managing your healthcare, but also thinking about how you're going to age in place as you get older. And so we're going to be talking about It's Your Move, is home sharing for you? And so I have Deb Knox here and Lucy Reed with Tucson Home Sharing, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. Deb Knox is the co-founder of Tucson Home Sharing. She helped to create this organization in 2017 when she and her and the co-founder Sharon were just beginning to first begin to share a home. Since then, Deb has been a strong supporter of the Tucson Home Sharing movement, and continues to educate and advise others on taking this step. With her today is Lucy Reed, and Lucy owns a home, has had her own home sharing experience when she was a teenager, and her family had a foreign exchange student living with her. Lucy is a retired RN who advocates for aging in place for older adults. And today, the two of them are going to share with you all you need to know about home sharing. So I want to welcome you here today. I know it's the first time we have held a talk like this. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Live, we have about 12 or 13 people, and we have an equal number apparently signed up on Zoom.
Yes.
So my name is Deb, and this is Lucy. And what we thought we'd do is start off with a video about my home sharing experience with Sharon. The Pew Charitable Trust gave us a phone call about a year after we started living together. And places like AARP online newsletter and not online, but live newspaper had featured us along with a bunch of other people. This was back in 2019. We started living together in 2017. So out of the blue, we had this great opportunity to have a wonderful, we think, 5-minute video about one example of home sharing. And what you need to keep in mind, as Lucy always says, every home sharing experience is unique. So Lucy's going to hit the button.
And you're not looking the fourth into the second, so we lose all the views.
I had a condo in this town, and I was ready to downsize, or right size as I call it. It was more space than I needed, and I was paying more for a mortgage than I wanted to pay this time. Business kind of started out a little bit.
Can't go up any, but you can read a lot of the dialogue.
University of Arizona in 2005, just after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Everything came to a head when I took a very bad fall one night. I realized that I needed to find somebody to live with who had a commitment to me. And I know that if I were to go to assisted living, I couldn't get the quality of care that I'm getting by staying home.
I think there are a lot of people my age who are making lifestyle changes based on financial circumstances. We're trying to anticipate the fact that we may live a lot longer than we thought.
That looks great.
It does, doesn't it?
I think the devil would be the better cook. Yes, I'm thinking, what would be the consequences if I said that I was the better cook? I didn't like what I saw.
Sharon was telling a friend found her need for something. And my friend Mert happened to say, I think I might know somebody who's interested. Very good.
And Deb told me that very same night, and there was a connection between us.
The day I've been here for the first time, she said, well, what is it you're really looking for? And I said, intimacy.
And I was a little alarmed. When I asked her, she said, it's being on the inside looking out rather than being on the outside looking in. That was a profound statement. One of the first tests of our relationship came when the moving truck pulled up in front of my house and unloaded her furniture. And I thought surely she was seeing the superiority of my coffee table to hers.
A dear friend of mine had made it and was very attached to it and it was perfect.
I realized that I could win this battle because it was my house and I could do whatever I wanted. And I could end up in an assisted living facility with my coffee table wedged into my other belongings. And I decided right then that no piece of furniture was more important than the relationship.
Some of the activities that Sharon and I enjoy doing together are coffee on the patio, watching the birds.
There's something about watching the wind and the leaves that just calms me down.
Sometimes I'm concerned that she spends too much time on the computer, playing solitaire, playing mahjong. I do my fair amount of solitaire and mahjong too.
I try to tell myself that there's some intellectual value in doing this, and I have to come up with a political reason. I would say to somebody considering this, don't just say, I want someone to keep me from being lonely. You have to think of exactly what you want. If you just guess at it, it's a very squishy target, and you won't necessarily know when you hit it.
My advice would be to talk about things like, who are you as a person? You know, could we possibly have a life together? What would that look like? Some of my friends looked at me and said, you're crazy. You're going to be burdened with this. This is not going to be good for you. On the contrary, they now say it's the best thing that's ever happened. I haven't been as happy since I moved in with Sharon. How cool was that? Hi, how are you?
This has definitely been one of the great experiences in my life. And it came at a time when I thought I would have no more great experiences to look forward to. And so Deb's presence in my life has been such a gift.
It is kind of sweet, isn't it? Thank you, Jennifer. So I'll tell you, those people came at 9 o'clock in the morning, a team of 6, a couple of local photographers and one or two recording people, light people and all of that. And they left at 7 o'clock. And they made it, so out of 10 hours of online time, that was a 5-minute video, beautifully edited, so, thank you. So Lucy, you want to start off? I've been blabbing a lot.
I can. Well, you know the history in terms of the longevity that this relationship has gone on. But the history of the organization is somewhat different. We actually started in 2019 and with the purpose of just raising the awareness of home sharing as an option to people in Tucson. So we've grown from itsy bitsy to a little bit bigger, all right? We like to say we're small, but we're mighty. We have a number of invitations to speak to different groups like this, you know, on our calendar slated for the next several months. And we also offer a regular program of in-service, what we call public gatherings by Zoom on the first Thursday of each month. And we offer a follow-up to that. This is a public gathering, well, yes, for the home audience, we're on Zoom. But As a matter of fact, and that's kind of a nice way to do it. I wish we could figure out how to do that, Deb. But I think that, our in-person gatherings can be very small or somewhat larger. And the idea behind it is to give you an idea about the benefits of home sharing. We recognize too that people have concerns. What am I going to do if I don't like the person that moves into me? And we try and tackle that in a number of ways. For instance, we advocate for what's called a homemate agreement, so that lots of things get spelled out. Deb and Sharon have a wonderful way to deal with things that maybe aren't going the way they thought they would, the way each of them thought would go. But on the 17th of each month, in recognition of the day that Deb moved in with Sharon, they either go out to dinner or they plan some kind of event where they can talk about what's going well and what's not. And I've never been invited to one of those meetings on the 17th, but I recognize that that's a special time for them to really be able to look back as well as look ahead. Because obviously Sharon's health is one thing of concern. And obviously, Sharon may think that Deb's shenanigans about going back east each summer for a month is something that she should be concerned about. But it's not. It's all been worked out. And it's because it's part of the agreement that you know what you're getting into before you actually get started. So, do any of you have experiences in home sharing? Have you ever done the group that's here? Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Would you go ahead?
I'm not sure it's even relevant because I was very young.
Okay.
I allowed people to move into my house, and it turned out to be a nightmare, and I ended up throwing them out.
Really? Good to know. No, well, I'm sorry for the
But I don't
negativity.
know when you're elderly, how, this lady needs you, Deb. And this is all different when you're young.
It is different. It is very different. And that's why we look at home sharing and what we're going to be talking about today as a real process. It's not an overnight decision. I don't know whether yours was an overnight decision, or somebody in the back also had. Did you have some home sharing experience?
Yeah. I've been in Tucson for, let's see.
Can you speak just louder, project?
I've been in Tucson for a few years, taking care of my mother. And then she died, and I decided that I didn't want to live alone. And I looked into some other options. And so I moved into my friend's house immediately before the pandemic. And we worked out a situation where we were able to get along and, share a certain amount of finances. And it worked out quite remarkably well, I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's great. And you can see just with the two women who are in this group today that their experiences were very different. All right. And that's why we say, and Deb alluded to this, that every home sharing experience or arrangement is unique. There are no two that look alike. You may have a college-age student with an elder adult. You may have two elderly individuals who choose to give it a try, take a bold step of faith, and so forth. But let's talk for a minute about the benefits. What do you think would be a benefit to home sharing?
You're not alone.
I'm sorry?
You're not alone.
You're not alone. Companionship, very good. Yeah, and that's a biggie. And the pandemic has certainly taught us that loneliness and boredom and isolation are not good things, especially for older adults.
How many of you live alone? So 3. And do the others have partners or companions or family members?
Okay, And we talk about home sharing as being a situation where at least two adults, no matter what the ages are, live together for mutual benefit. And that mutual benefit is a big deal. You know, yes, there may be lowered expenses for both of you. That's a mutual benefit. The idea of having companionship is another mutual benefit. And then there are very specific benefits for the home provider. If you're the person who has the space and you own your own home or you rent your own home and have been there a long time, what do you think might be a benefit to asking somebody to move in with you besides companionship and the lowered expense? Yes,
Oh, you said it last, sharing expenses.
sharing expenses, yes.
And
That's
divide the work.
divide the work, absolutely. What about if you have pets?
Yes,
Would that be a benefit to somebody?
yes.
Yeah.
Good to me.
Oh, okay, there you go. I'm guessing that you have a pet.
No, I don't.
You don't, okay.
But I wish I did.
And if you did, and you wanted to go on vacation without your pet,
Yep.
would it be a benefit to you to have
Of
someone there to
course.
take care of them?
Of
Absolutely.
course.
Absolutely. What about your plants?
I was just gonna say with the animal thing though, that could be something that you would put on your list. I don't have any animals, but I would love to move in with somebody who does have animals.
Yes.
So start thinking like that. What are the things that are missing in your life that you might be able to invite another person to bring?
There's a lot missing in my life. I married a man 7 years ago who lived in Montana. And we met online and I went to see him and he had kind of invited himself to come live with me in Tucson and he did nothing but complain about the heat. And the thorns and the no fishing and, you know, all of that. And, I've stayed with him, but I am currently, he's had many strokes. And so, I'm hurt his nerves and I don't wanna be. And so I'm seeking long-term care for him through the state. Because, I do everything and I'm tired. I do everything. We traveled for a year and when we would park for the night, I had to set up the camper. And then in the morning, unset the camper and then do all the driving and, you know, all of that.
And stop, if you will, just because you've given us a very good picture of a third relationship or arrangement that's different from the other two.
Well, yeah,
So I'm glad you really shared that with us.
yeah, he is not the man I married because of the strokes.
I understand.
That's the
And that's-
issue.
And that's a caregiving issue. And Deb can tell you full circle about caregiving with Sharon on a recent basis because they both just had COVID.
Oh,
All right, and so the caregiver that used to come on a daily basis couldn't come. So my friend Deb became the caregiver. And that's something that, you know, most of us don't have any education for or experience with until it's thrust upon us.
Yes.
And suddenly it's there and we know that's very real. You know, but the companionship, the lowered expenses, the more sustainable lifestyle. You know, less electricity is being used, maybe even fewer gallons of gasoline because you're sharing some transportation together. All those things make it very, very attractive as mutual benefits.
How many of you or your family members worry about you falling in the middle of the night and not being anybody there? Is that a concern?
Not yet.
Not yet. But my guess is that that's coming.
Yeah.
And I mean.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with age. It may well have to do with interior health issues.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So, and we can't predict this. And I mean, yes,
Deb, right?
Yep.
So what happens if Sharon gets worse and needs total care and leaves you in her house?
Well,
Sells the house, how does that leave the person?
I think that's an important part of every home sharing agreement is to look at the future. What's the best way for the relationship to end? Can I finish answering this question and I'll get back to you? We did have that discussion early on. Her son lives in the casita in the back and he will get all of the property. But I have been given a 6-month continue to live there without paying any rent, and my intention would be to find somebody to share the house with. And then we would pay rent to her son. He's 50 years old, he has no interest. He could decide next month. And then, yes, I'd have to make another decision. But how many people we know end up having to make decisions like that at the last minute? Meanwhile, I've had the experience of a really positive, mutually supportive relationship. I'm 78, she's 79, so we were in our early 70s, and I'm a lot older now and frailer than I was 7 years ago. So the relationships will change. And that's part of home sharing, is trying to anticipate and have plan A's and B's and C's. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, when I came here to take care of Mom, it took me a little while, but I figured out that I needed an exit strategy, and that's what I called it. If this, I couldn't take care of her anymore. But it sort of gave me an outline and a sense of having something set down. We were talking about setting down rules between two people. Well, Mom couldn't do that because she wasn't capable. But for me, I had to know how far I could take that, as far as staying with her, taking care of her, and that's what that was, the exit strategy for me.
Each party, I think, really has to have their own self-interest at heart in order to engage in this. Sharon said, I own the house, I could have made the decision about the furniture, but then I'd be in assisted living by myself. So she had her interest at heart and I had my interest at heart. And that's the beginning of the conversation, the negotiating. What does each of you want and need to make a successful home sharing experience?
and the other part of that is, I'm sure you can tell by now that it's not just about you. It's about how the other person lives, wants to live, and how compatible the two of your lifestyles might be. Deb and Sharon have a tremendous amount in common to start with. An interest in people, writing, a lot of community service, just a lot of things that might lend themselves to future compatibility. And this is the primary reason that we say, please don't jump into this overnight. This is not a hasty decision to be made. This is a thought process that requires time and energy on your part. And we'll provide you with some tools, right? We're going to give you a self-assessment questionnaire that has some very general questions on it today, for whether you're looking for somebody for something new or whether you actually have a home to share. And we'll give you those, and then we'll encourage you, if you will fill out some contact information on a sheet over on the table there, so that we can email you the rest of the questionnaire and invite you to additional workshops. Because this public gathering that we do usually is about an hour, but you don't have all the tools and all the information that you need in order to make a decision to do this within 1 hour, I promise. Yes.
I can't remember, did you say there was an organization that brings this more cohesive so that you can find people, or I don't remember.
Okay, I'll be happy to respond to that. We are with Tucson Home Sharing, and we are the only organization dedicated to home sharing in southern Arizona. All right, right now. There are, however, 16 other states that have state offices on home sharing. You know, in addition to a number of programs. California has
20.
20.
20 home sharing programs. You know, 10 in the San Francisco area, 5 in LA and San Diego.
Because nobody can afford a home.
And look at what's happening in Tucson.
Not as
That's
bad,
right.
Not nearly.
You're right. It is not so bad as California. But at the same time, you know, we're the youngsters on the block and trying to get this started.
Yeah.
But to be very specific, to answer your question, no, we do not provide a matching service per se. We encourage you that what we call our next steps workshop number 1 is to help you write an announcement of what you're looking for, or what space you have available and in what property, what part of town. And then we have a long discussion about where you might post these announcements, whether it's a Silver Nest or an HOA or a next door. You know, there are lots of possibilities.
Churches,
Churches,
TMC for
libraries.
seniors, libraries.
TMC for seniors. I'm assuming that there's a bulletin board somewhere. You know,
How do you screen these people? Because invariably there are charlatans that are going to prey on people
Right.
for this reason.
well, that's why this is a process. And one of the other things that we do in those next step workshops is teach you the right questions to answer, so that you have interviewing skills that you might not have thought about before. It's vital.
Background check.
Well, background checks.
Absolutely. Background checks, security checks, you know, lots of fingerprints, you know, there are lots of ways to look into somebody else's background. It's very interesting.
One of the most productive, I think, is what we call a reference check. And that would be to ask the potential person that you might be sharing your home with, to give you the names of 2 or 3 people who've known you or know you well, known you for a long time, know you well, anybody you've lived with before. And you use those reference checks to find out what goes on inside a home. It's really private, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it's gotta be, you gotta have similar, we talk about everything from cleanliness in the kitchen to how you spend your time together. So what I want to answer is, how do you not get somebody that is not,
Is a charlatan.
as a charlatan, that was the word you used, is you get really clear, the more you fill out these forms and think about it and listen to other people. That's a good tip. You know, you may care about one thing and she's going to care about something different. But the more clear you get about what you want and need, the more respect you have, because you're looking for somebody else who's as clear as you are. You don't have to want everything lined up exactly, but you want to know they've put the same thought process into it that you have. This is about aging in place. You don't want to make a mistake.
So what if you do?
Well, then that's how you.
What's the how?
That's-
What's the back door of this?
The back door is your home agreement. Some people, some of the programs that have been in existence longer than ours, it suggests a trial period. Somebody moves in for 3 months. You gotta juggle furniture and that kind of thing, but you'd know after 3 months if that.
You sure would.
Yeah, or 3 weeks.
Or 3 weeks
Yeah.
even, yeah.
3 days.
So, but also you're screening maybe more than one person.
Right.
That's the thing, you put your ad out there, you hear from 2 or 3 people, you may hang up after the first phone call. I don't think it's gonna work. And you need to be able to say it's not gonna work, thank you very much for your interest. You smoke, whatever it is you do that's, I don't even wanna consider you. But then people hopefully will keep showing up, and the more this movement grows, the more people, I believe, will be really interested in. For homeowners, it's opening their doors and their hearts to other people. For me, I was alone, I've never been married, never had kids. I didn't want to grow old alone. And I anticipated the older I got, the more I'd want to be homebound. And then COVID did it, right? Oh, well, it's not so bad after all, but. So I was just gonna, some of the other benefits that we haven't really, it's emergencies. Is somebody there to take you to the the ER, the hospital if you fall? What else have we covered?
Living in a safe and comfortable environment. Most people who have an extra bedroom and a bath and some common space available are going to allow you to use that extra space, the common space.
Mhm.
But that brings up another point. What kind of television do you like? Or music? Do you like music in the background all day long? Or would that drive you nuts? What about the cleanliness of your home or your kitchen? Can you stand to have stacks of dishes up to here? I can't. I could. I mean, I don't. So, but we're all different.
Right.
So if I were looking for somebody that I was compatible with, that would be not probably the most important thing, but it would be near the top of the list. Because I just can't stand a whole lot of clutter and, dirty dishes. It's just hard for me. I'm a neatnik, what can I say? And then what about the benefit for faraway family? Can you imagine what that would be? How meaningful that would be? Our kids say to my husband and me all the time, "What are you going to do when you're really old, Mom?" And we go, "Well, we're there." But we have a plan in place. We know we're not moving to Bismarck where one is. We're not going to Canada where another is. And we can't stay in Chicago. So, it's just too big a city. So now is the time to really formulate some ideas, some plans for the future. It doesn't mean you have to stick with it forever and ever, but home sharing is an option. It's less expensive, it's companionship, it's a lot of things that older adults really want. And it makes sense. It's trendy right now, as we said. 16 other states have home sharing offices on a state level. There are lots and lots of things that are exciting going on in different parts of the country. But what's it going to take to get you to that point? None of you were there right now, unless it's the lady in the back who had such a negative experience. But yes, you.
She had a good one.
Yeah, no, the lady in the back.
Hardly had any negative experience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Negative.
Two sort of negatives. Okay. But you're still not probably ready to post an announcement tomorrow and say, "This is what I want." Yes.
What about the sex of the person that moves in? Opposite sex?
It
I'm
just,
not talking about sexual.
I understand. And these
Getting
are,
along with.
generally, home sharing relationships are unrelated adults, all right, for the most part. But, if you have a sister or a brother or whatever that you're really close to, and, I'm not sure we call that home sharing as we know it today, but there certainly is a type. And again, every relationship is different. But to answer your question specifically, how would you feel about living with a man?
Good.
Moving in with him, okay. And it may have nothing to do with any kind of sexual attraction at all. But most men will say they would live with either a man or a woman. Most women will say they prefer to live with a woman, but not all, obviously. So what's important to one is unimportant to another.
If you go to our website, Tucson Home Sharing, we'll be passing out some handouts. Tucson Home Sharing, we have several stories of, one is a woman, Mary, who had moved in with George and his wife, Nancy. Nancy had MS. That was maybe 20 years ago. Nancy died and Mary stayed on with George. Okay? And then George just passed away in December. What happens? The kids get the house, they're gonna sell it, she's already moved on. But then there's another story of Jesse. Jesse Jones is in his 20s. He put himself through undergraduate and graduate school home sharing and got a job at Raytheon from Atlanta, Georgia. Got a job at Raytheon, put an ad in the paper, Craigslist even, and found Henry New's kids. Henry's kids were in California and Oklahoma, and they were worried about their 93-year-old dad living alone. So Jesse filled the bill. They talked on the phone 4 times. They met. Jesse moved in. Henry passed away, and Jesse moved on. And then you have the intergenerational, same sex, different sex. Sharon, what do you mean by intimacy? Well, it wasn't that I was looking for a romantic relationship. I wanted a companion.
Sure.
So think about what you really want is the first step in considering this. So I'm curious, what are your concerns? You've already said what can go wrong.
Well, everything can go to pot, but it doesn't have to either if you have good negotiating and compromise and understanding and care for the other person.
Key features, we all need loving, we all need support, we all need companionship.
I do not have that available to me because he is simply incapable.
Sure.
And I haven't had any companionship other than a warm body, and that's not enough.
Some people would say that would be just enough at this stage of my life.
Yeah, well,
What about privacy?
that too.
Yeah. I mean, I lived alone most of my life. Sharon had a family, so she was much more used to people being around. But boy, I've set up my boundaries when I first moved in. I need this and I need that, and I need to be alone, and blah, blah, blah. And now I spend half my time with her.
But if the house is like a split bedroom thing, I mean, if your house is 2 bedrooms next to each other, as opposed to a split.
A lot of people look at their homeowners. How many of you are any of you homeowners? Okay. Yeah, you need to look at the space. Is it adaptable for another person? She did have a separate bedroom way over here. She's way over here, and 2 baths. Sometimes people have to share baths. I wouldn't be happy about that myself, but I said I'd do it with a woman, but not a man, kind of thing. So you do have your, what's the word I want? Limitations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, things you'll do what you need and things you don't need. So independence, privacy, doing things on your own. How do you navigate a life with another person? So nobody, you don't feel left out, but at the same time, you feel like.
You're not dependent.
Did you have a car?
I have a car, she had stopped driving. So that was a big asset.
Yeah.
And she has a caregiver, so that caregiver is there 6 hours a day. So I could continue my own business, quote unquote, which is now Tucson Home Sharing. But that caregiver takes her to her doctor's appointments. But otherwise, I'd be doing that, and that would be part of our agreement.
How about some other concerns?
Yeah, concerns.
You were chuckling under your hat there. Tell
Well,
us.
I knew a man who had a 2-bedroom house. He rented one of his rooms out, and he was mad because the renter was not spending time with him.
Oh.
And he,
So-
it was like, well,
So this is a familiar story to you.
well, not to me personally.
Right, but to
But
your
I
friend.
heard about it, and it's like, well, are you renting
Yeah.
to have a friend, or are you renting to make money off the room? And that concerns me. It's like, well, what is your goal? What is your,
Why do you want to live with somebody else?
right?
And we think there are a lot of benefits, but there are concerns. And the biggest one is if you don't figure out ahead of time what each of you wants.
So that you're compatible. I mean, that's a word that you hear us say over and over again because we think that relationships, for the most part, are based on compatibility. You probably don't have too many good friends with whom you have nothing in common. Because that's just not the way it works.
Right.
That's why we talk so much about compatibility as being a vital clue to the success of long-standing home sharing. You know, I mean, 7 years is nothing to turn up your nose at, you know, for Deb and Sharon. And I've known Deb the whole time, and I can tell you that she's been a friend the whole time, but she's even a closer friend because she has that relationship with another person now that she didn't have before.
It changes you. It changes you. You stop thinking just about yourself, and you start thinking about somebody else. Questions, concerns? We've heard a lot from you, Jennifer.
We're gonna go do some online questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Okay.
come back and do some online questions.
Okay,
All right, how do we do that again?
You'll just ask me the questions.
okay.
Okay, thank you. I did have a couple of questions that came in that I wanted to ask. One was, do you have any resources that somebody might be able to use if they're experiencing conflict with their new roommate?
Yes, we have a couple of different resources, and once we get more matches or more relationships that are set up, I think we can facilitate it a little bit more. But there is an organization in town that used to be part of our family services, and it's Chris Mavesic and Catherine Tornbaum doing conflict resolution, mediation, those kinds of skills and tools. Tucson Home Sharing would like to be able to offer directly, but right now we have access to those people. But I think going through the process, whoever asked the question, will help you anticipate what those differences might be and begin to include those in your conversation.
Great. And then how would you address the topic of perhaps, and maybe you have done this already, Deb, of having family or friends who visit and they stay with you? How have you been able to experience that before in your living, you know, under your living arrangements, and how has that worked?
That is one of the things that we encourage people to think about in their pre-self-assessment. If you have kids, are they going to come to your house? How long are they going to stay? And you need to make that part of your condition on moving in, if that makes sense. We do have an extra bedroom, a third bedroom, which is really nice. And Sharon has a friend from Wales who comes over every year for about 8 weeks, mostly in the summer because it rains in Wales all the time. But she'd come in, and Sharon asked me, this is, you know, asked me, told me, you know, Leslie's going to come. How do you feel about having somebody live in the house for 2 months? Well, I said, well, we'll see.
So how did it work out?
Well, it worked out great because there was another person to cook. Our freezer full of food that Leslie cooks every summer for us.
And you probably gained a new friend as well, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Our social networks have grown, expanded, and blended. Yeah.
That's great. So, okay, so I just want to share with our online audience, and I did put up on the screen that if anyone is interested in learning more about Tucson Home Sharing, they can go to your website, which is tucsonhomesharing.org, or they can reach out to us, and we'd be happy to take down their contact information and share it with Deb and Lucy. They can either email us at seniorservices@pmcaz.com or give us a call in the office. The number is 520-324-1960. I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to wrap up with our online audience, and I'll let you continue to take questions in person. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being here today. We look forward to seeing you at our next presentation. That will be our next online presentation will be Improve Your Focus, Memory, and Motivation on Wednesday, April 19th at 10 a.m. If you are interested in that class, please give us a call at 324-1960 and we'll be happy to get you registered. Thanks again.